O.J. Simpson gets the call. There's his brilliance. 13 yards. Touchdown.
He was a great talent. I could picture him as a famous dancer and put it to music.
I used to be on the field sometimes, and I thought I can whoop anybody on the football field.
Born and raised in a ghetto in San Francisco, he fought his way to glory on the playing fields of America.
Where he came from and where he rose to, it took an awful lot of drive. It took an awful lot of skills, too.
Here's a few tips on how to get out of an airport fast.
His talent gave him the chance to become one of the first black spokesmen for major advertisers.
Take it from O.J. Simpson. There's only one superstar in Rent-A-Car.
He appeared on TV and in the movies.
I was fortunate enough to grow
He became a
up in
network sports
NFL
commentator.
city, watching the 49ers play.
In 1985, O.J. married Nicole Brown, his second wife. For a while, they seemed to have it all: wealth, celebrity, the good life. But their marriage was a stormy one, filled with occasional violence and calls from Nicole to 911.
We broke the back door down to get in. Okay, wait a minute.
Wanted murder suspect, 2 counts of murder, a terrible crime.
O.J. Simpson was on the run.
O.J. Simpson is on board that Ford Bronco, reportedly has a gun to his head.
He's at his home.
My goodness gracious.
He's come home after all of that.
The Los Angeles Police Department says that O.J. Simpson is in custody.
He's charged with the double murder.
At this time, do you wish to enter a plea guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Orenthal James Simpson was born July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, the second youngest of 4 children. His aunt gave him the name because she liked its exotic sound. His mother, Eunice, was a hospital orderly. His father, James, a janitor who deserted the family when O.J. was 4.
All of us, none of us had dads in the home. Miss Simpson is a doll. She's a jewel. She's always been there. I mean, the good times, the bad times. I mean, she has been a mainstream for the family throughout.
O.J.'s mother was certainly the strongest of roles in his life, and he'll tell you the respect and admiration for her is just overwhelming.
When I was about 9 years old, my mother worked all her life, and she took the whole family on vacation to visit her sister in Las Vegas. And while we were down there, about 5 days into the vacation, I had to play in a Little League, my first Little League baseball game, and I was moping around, and she noticed how sad I was. And, I mean, she drove me 700 miles back to San Francisco, so I wouldn't miss my first Little League game.
As a child, O.J. had the bone disease rickets. Too poor to afford treatment, his mother made him braces from scrap metal. O.J. wore them until he was 5. He grew up bow-legged and pigeon-toed. O.J.'s friends called him pencil pins. Because his mother worked double shifts at the hospital, he had little supervision at home. In his preteens, he began to wander the streets with his friends.
We were together. We went places together. If a fight broke out, we were there to fight. I mean, you know, O.J. was a leader because of the way he looked. You know, he looked like a man, and he was with us, and he was tough, and not having fathers. O.J. was really more of a father figure than anything.
In junior high, O.J. first showed his athletic ability, his speed as a sprinter. But he and his friends were sometimes running toward trouble.
He came from a tough neighborhood in San Francisco, and he grew up as an athlete, an exceptional athlete with exceptional speed and exceptional strength, and fought his way out of that neighborhood. There's no question there were lots of kids who did not make their way out of that neighborhood, who ran into early troubles, drugs, violence, whatever. He was strong enough physically and mentally to survive that.
After breaking a thumb in baseball, to stay in sports, O.J. turned to track and football at Galileo High School. He quickly became the school's star running back.
Galileo's an interesting school if you know San Francisco.
It's located in the North Beach section of town, which is right next to Chinatown, and I guess we're about 80% Oriental in the school, so where Jason Sue, as tough as you can be, he was only 5'6", 140 pounds, and he was my strong side tackle. So we didn't win that many games.
O.J. Simpson had great success in high school sports, and with the success, there was something else.
The people that were around him kind of felt that there was an aura about him that you know, you wanted to be around this man, that there was something good in his life that was going to transpire, particularly athletically. He had all those abilities.
During football season, he would hang out at Kezar Stadium, trying to earn a few dollars, hoping for a glimpse of his idols.
I never missed a 49er game, and of course Jim Brown was everybody's hero in my neighborhood. He was the best. He was Jim. We had picked up cushions. You get a nickel a cushion. And it was real late. Most of the people were gone, and we had gone into an ice cream shop across the street from the stadium. And Jim walked in with a few guys. And I was a leader of my guys. And, you know, when you see sort of a hero of yours there, you don't walk up and say, hey, I'm your favorite, you know, fan. Or right. Guys tend to get, you know, macho. And I said, oh, you ain't so tough, man. I'm going to break all your records one day, you know. And he'd say, okay, little dude, we'll see.
That was to come later. But as a teenager, the lure of the streets was still strong. His gang, the Persian Warriors,
some of the things that happened, and I mean, O.J. could have been dead.
Despite their close calls, O.J. and his friends continued stealing until one night it became too serious.
We were going around gathering beer and things like that for the party. And there was one particular merchant in the Potrero Hill area that we felt like he had excess inventory, so we relieved him of it. And as a result, he called the police.
O.J. spent the night in detention at Juvenile Hall. It was that incident that worried his family and his Galileo coaches. Willie Mays, then the star outfielder with the San Francisco Giants, was called by a Simpson family friend. Mays was asked to help a kid named O.J., a promising young athlete on the verge of getting into big trouble.
Coach had called me and said that O.J. needed a road to go on. That means some kind of guidance that he needed from someone like myself. And I just talked about what we had to talk about, and it might not have even been what he was looking for, but he listened very well. He wasn't a type of kid that was kind of cocky. He wasn't cocky then. He was a kid that seemed to want someone to tell him what road to go in.
Baseball was our real love at that time in our lives. And it was because of the fact that Willie Mays, I mean, hey, to say, hey, kid, I mean, gee whiz, Willie Mays was bigger than life back then.
O.J.'s day with Willie Mays had a good effect on him, but it did not stop him from getting into trouble. By the time he was 17 and a senior, he only had a C- average.
O.J.'s mother wanted him to graduate from high school. But, you know, in terms of going on to college, get a good job, son. You know, be a construction worker, O.J.
O.J. didn't dream that football could be his escape from the ghetto. It was 1965. The Vietnam War was on, and from a distance, it seemed glamorous.
His biography returns to our look at O.J. Simpson.
O.J. won all city honors as a fullback in football. But growing up poor in the projects, there was little incentive to stay in school. But O.J.'s mother insisted he must graduate.
I had to go until June. Ronnie Patterson, one of my buddies who quit, went into the service and in, 8-9 months went to training camp and was in Vietnam and was back home and he had lost a leg. Somehow the glamour of the service at that point, the realism set in that, hey, it's not Audie Murphy. We were not just going to go over there and be war heroes, and at the time some people that I knew were in junior college and they were challenging me because they were the starting runners there, and all in all I decided I better give junior college a shot.
O.J. was a fabulous junior college athlete, and it was clear from the first time, I saw him play, and I think anybody that recognized his athletic ability, that he was somebody that was just way, way, way beyond the norm.
Coach George Rush played against O.J. Simpson in high school and played with him at City College of San Francisco in 1966.
He never looked like he was running fast, but he was flying. He's one of those guys that looked like playing football was effortless. Looked like he wasn't trying, but he's making plays all over the place. He was remarkable. I mean, most people can't do those things. His freshman year, he's the player of the year in the conference.
And much more. In 2 seasons at City College, O.J. scored 54 touchdowns, still a junior college record. He broke 8 conference offensive records and set 2 national records for rushing. Simpson made the junior college All-America team. He led his team to a 13-1 record over 2 seasons.
Because we were always so far ahead in games, the lower-level players would, get a lot of playing time, and he would be generally sincere in his motivating them from the sideline and cheering them on to do well. He was a team player. He wasn't an egocentric guy that was hard to live with. It was really easy to deal with, both on and off the field. He was a good guy.
Because of his success in football, O.J. was about to move from the hard-scrabble junior college circuit to the big time. 50 colleges were after him, but O.J. wanted to play for the University of Southern California, and they wanted him. USC gave O.J. a full scholarship. Perhaps he recalled Willie Mays' advice.
I said to him, I think you should go south, which is down in, southern part of California, and that the reason for that, he asked me a reason, and I said, if you are a superstar like you already are, not knowing it, you will be a bigger superstar, and that way you have a chance to win a Heisman.
It did not take long for O.J. to become a superstar. In his first year for the USC Trojans, Simpson led his team to a Rose Bowl victory, to the #1 ranking in the country, and he was voted All-American. O.J. was bigger and stronger, his running game better than anyone else's. Before a nationally televised game against Notre Dame, USC coach John McKay praised his young running back.
We think he's highly intelligent as a football player. He never makes the mental error that can get you beat. Now, every once in a while he fumbles, but I can stand that after he's made all the yards he's made.
While at USC, O.J. Simpson married his childhood sweetheart from the projects, Marguerite Whitley. Years later, she said that when they were growing up, she sensed something good in him, but that he lived on the brink of disaster. Football changed all that, changed his life.
O.J. is very serious. He loves football, and he's just a serious person. He's fun after football season. During football season, he's really concerned about, and he doesn't have too much time to really play around or pleasure or anything like that.
The first of their 3 children, a girl, Arnell, was born in 1968, O.J.'s senior year at USC. Simpson was also a great sprinter in track. In 1967, he was a member of USC's world record 440-yard relay team. In 1968, his last season at USC, O.J. set the single-season college football rushing record. He again was All-America, and he won college football's highest honor, the Heisman Trophy, with the biggest vote margin of all time.
I'm certainly proud, and I'm very happy. I'm really glad it's over. I can't wait this evening to see some of the guys on the team. I know they're just as happy as I am, and I realize they did just as much as I did. They contributed as much as I did to win this award, and I'm taking it as a team award.
Because of his awards and many records, in 1968, O.J. Simpson was the #1 draft pick of the last-place Buffalo Bills, winners of only 1 game the previous year.
I don't mind going to a losing team. I think, I think it's up to a player. I don't think he should worry about if the team's winning or losing. I think if he have enough confidence in himself and the other guys on the team, they'll make a winner out of the team.
O.J. thought some losing teams were better than others, and he felt Buffalo was not the team for him.
I'd like to play in California. I want to live in California, and I would like to play in the NFL, so that leaves 2 teams, the San Francisco 49ers or the Rams.
The scene was set by the media in Southern California. They thought that going to Buffalo was so far beneath him. It was like a member of the royal family being sent to Transylvania.
With Buffalo now in hot pursuit, O.J. signed with an agent.
His agent and he, to a little lesser extent, wanted a more glamorous location, and I think he had the holdout was designed to discourage Buffalo and to get them to trade him to another more deserving locale. It was a war of wills, And Ralph Wilson, the Bills owner, won.
War or not, Wilson and the Bills needed O.J. Simpson to rebuild the team. The NFL dictates that the worst team in the league must have the first draft pick. He had no alternative. So Simpson signed a 4-year guaranteed contract for almost $100,000 a year, not as much as he wanted. O.J. finally arrived in Buffalo, ready to play.
Well, I never had much doubt that I'd miss him in the first place. That was O.J. Simpson. And I now feel like dozens and dozens of college defensive tacklers have felt as he went streaming by on his way to another touchdown. O.J. is now playing, of course, for the Buffalo Bills. The question is, how many professional defensive tacklers is he going to leave like that? I wonder if you would, in terms of a statement, try to define for me what are the differences between college and professional ball.
Well, I don't know. I guess basically it's the attitude. You know, in college you're playing for, you know, DO, what have you. In my case, DO, USC, you know. When you come into pros, it's a little different. I know when I first came to Buffalo, it was almost like reporting for a job. You know, I was just coming to a job. But once I met the guys and got to know the guys, that I'm getting the feeling that I'm playing for, you know, the Buffalo Bills.
O.J.'s first 3 professional seasons in Buffalo were disasters. The bleak, cold industrial city made him pine for the warmth of California.
He hated snow. He really did. And we had a couple of bad winters while he was there.
Worse, he played for a coach who used him as an ordinary runner, a blocker, and a pass receiver. The team was still losing, and O.J. felt his talent as a running back was not appreciated.
O.J. was despondent over what was going on. And you can understand that knowing him after the fact. Here was an extraordinary talent. I'm not sure how many of us will ever see anybody with that kind of natural football talent again.
The cast that surrounded him was so inept that they couldn't take advantage of his natural skills. And his ability was questioned, his heart was questioned. There was a famous sportscaster in Buffalo at the time who had been an All-America football player himself. And on a TV show, in the middle of O.J.'s first year, he tapped his chest on the left side and said, Simpson just doesn't have it here.
The press continued to attack his running style as well.
They accused him of running on eggshells, and his style, his running style, was to juke and dance and, wait for the opening and then accelerate through it. Well, there never was an opening. So he did a lot of duking and dancing, and it went for naught, and people criticized him for it.
He wasn't accomplishing the things that he wanted to accomplish. Being at USC and a Southern California kid, he had expected a lot of different kind of things from his football career. And here he was stuck in Buffalo, New York, and nothing was happening.
In his personal life, though, O.J. made an important decision concerning his father. O.J.'s father had been out of the house, but in the neighborhood when he was growing up. When O.J.'s mother needed help in disciplining her son, she called on his father, James, to do the job. O.J. and his father had had a tenuous relationship for years, but they were finally reconciled.
My dad, Jimmy, I don't know, what do you say about your dad? You know, there are people, you know, they're raised in broken homes. Even though my dad didn't live under the same roof as us during most of my youth, he was always there, Dad. He was always there. You know, I always had a father. I love you for it.
Despite the public acknowledgement of it, O.J. once said, quote, "It's taken me years to come to terms with my feelings." In 1972 in Buffalo, with the Bills still losing, management decided it needed to change the direction of the team. A new coach was hired with a new attitude toward O.J.
I realized he was a great player and a Heisman Trophy winner and a great talent. And we took the club over in 1972, and I realized I had O.J. Simpson as one of my players, and I was elated. Figure, how often do you go ahead and get a player like this? But I realized that, and so did O.J., they had 3 bad years as far as he was concerned, and it was very costly to him.
Coach Saban met with O.J. during a scouting trip to the Hula Bowl game in Honolulu.
We talked briefly, and I said, I look forward to seeing you in Buffalo in July. He appeared, walked up my office, So I'd like to talk to you. And I kind of felt strange about this thing. I thought he'd be elated, ready to go, but he was kind of back offish, and he said, but I kind of feel that maybe I should be backing off, and I'm going to decide to retire and call it quits. I just backed off. I was shocked. I couldn't believe this. I said, I've done a great job of selling O.J. Simpson on staying. Here he's decided to go ahead and call it quits. So we shook hands, and he walked away, and I turned around just for a second. I said, but O.J., if you stay, you just might like it. And he looked at me, and he said, what did you say? I said, O.J., if you stay, you just might like it.
No one would blame him for wanting to quit, because he was considered, after 3 years, that's a lifetime in football. He was considered another Heisman Trophy bust.
O.J. Simpson was again at a crossroads. He had important decisions to make about whether to play football or pursue a new career. After 3 poor seasons with the Buffalo Bills, in which his talent as a running back was underused, O.J.'s confidence as a player was waning. O.J. thought of quitting. Then along came Coach Lou Saban with a promise of change.
Just kind of offense that we would feature O.J., because we were a club that was 1-13 when we took it over, and we decided we better rebuild and feature the best player we've got and feature our running game and slowly build up our offensive line and also our defense so we can get the ball more often, so we can give the ball to O.J. and let him go with it.
It was Lou that came here when I had really given up on a lot of things in my career. I thought, well, if I can have a couple of good years, I'd be all right.
He was very sensitive to everything that surrounded him. He looked at his offensive linemen. He could tell pretty much what they could do, what they couldn't do.
Buffalo Bills guard Reggie McKenzie was one of those linemen.
My man. He always said, before you can run outside, you got to run between the tackles. And he because of his upbringing, he was a tough kid because he had to grow up tough. He would always say, before you can juke a guy, you got to give the guy a bone. In other words, you got to give him a shot, okay, to make that guy think, hey, listen, I'll run you over.
He could look to his right and to his left and make the 90-degree cut, which very few ball players could do. He ran with an upright type of running gait, whereby he could see it and also anticipate the hits that might be there and also be able to see blockers coming from all directions to give him a hand whenever he needed it.
That was a very powerful group of men in what O.J. named the Electric Company. He and Reggie McKenzie, of course, was on that line, and the main plug, as they used to say, in that offensive line.
So we just went ahead and plugged in the juice and went on from there.
The offensive line of the Bills gave O.J. all the juice he needed. In 1972, he gained 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, a milestone for any running back.
He said, man, I just gained 1,000 yards. I said, you've done that before, haven't you? He says, no. I said, you should have done that long ago, and you can do better than that. You can do twice as much.
Going into the first game, in a regular season game of the season against New England, you say, here's where it starts. We're going to do something nobody's ever done. We're going to get 2,000 yards. And I thought he was a little batty, you know.
In 1973, O.J.'s rushing yardage increased with each grueling game. The team had a feeling he would break Jim Brown's record, shattering the magic ceiling of 2,000 yards in a 14-game season. To reach that mark, O.J. knew he could not let up.
He'd run 100 yards and then walk over the other side of the field, then run another 100 yards, then walk over to the other side of the field when the defense was practicing this thing. And it was him and Braxton. And I say, hey, man, what you doing? He says, I'm running 100 yards because if I have to do it in the ball game, I want to understand, I want to know what it feels like to have to run 100 yards.
For most runners, gaining 100 yards in a game is a good day. O.J. often gained 200 yards a game. Now the Bills were ready for the last game of the season against the Jets in New York. It would be O.J.'s last chance to gain over 2,000 yards.
It was a very, very bad field, inclement weather, very blustery. A game in which you almost had to run.
When we went into that last game, it was a horrible day. We only needed 61 yards to surpass Jim, so I knew we would get that. I knew if I had to carry the ball 61 times, we would, and the guys were all pumped up.
We all, offensively, we all felt a part of this thing now. And he had I think 60 yards to go to break Jim Brown's record, but that was neither here nor there. We wanted the whole enchilada and 2,000 yards.
He'd gone 1,800 and some yards, and they came to the sideline, took a timeout, and Reggie and DeLamelore says, "Coach, what do you want to do?" And Reggie says, "Let's go for 2,000." And of course, it's just like an eruption guy at that time, and the fellas were dashed out there to go ahead and see if they could get to 2,000, and well, they got 2,003.
O.J. running left. O.J. 5 more. Maybe more. Maybe 6. Maybe 6. There it is. They did it. Yeah.
When he went over the 2,000, we were caught up in it too. I don't think it really dawned on us what had happened.
Rick Azar ran from the broadcast booth to the locker room for the first interview with O.J. after he set the record.
You son of a gun, you went over 2,000 yards. What about that? Oh, I'm ecstatic about it. You know, Reg McKenzie told me on the telephone this offseason. I said, well, we'll get that 1,500 this year. He said, well, what the hell, 2,000? And we did it.
He had a glazed look on his face. He was, I think the impact of what had happened was just, he hadn't realized it yet.
There it was, a record until that moment considered impossible by most.
Hey, Jay.
O.J.'s football superstardom increased his value as an advertising pitchman, and he sold everything from sunglasses...
Of course, another reason I wear polarized Foster-Grants is they look so good.
...to cowboy boots.
He's walking, yes indeed, a dingo man down to his feet. I'm hoping that he'll walk up to me.
And he appeared in movies, such as The Klansman in 1974, attending the Buffalo opening with his wife, Marguerite.
You think he's the one that's responsible for you having that job in Chicago? I tell you who got it for you, baby. Who's your brothers? You know the ones in Watts in Detroit on them roofs?
How do you learn to be an actor, O.J.?
Well, you do a lot of BSing, which I've always done. And you just, try to confine it into a script. I enjoy it. A lot of people have called me a bad actor all my life, so I enjoy it. I like doing it.
In 1975, Hertz, looking for a true superstar to be its spokesman, signed O.J. Simpson for its new national campaign.
Wasn't that O.J.?
Hertz's revenues rose by 50% in O.J.'s first year as its spokesman. It was an association that would last almost 2 decades. O.J.'s handlers said they were directing the life of a legend.
I think the time and the man came together in the 70s, a time where people, I think, were a little more tolerant, a little bit more open-minded, and certainly the achievements of the man himself, his character, and what he put across on camera were the right thing that companies were looking for.
In recognition of his power as a pitchman, in 1977, O.J. was Advertising Age's Star Presenter of the Year. Because of his heavy schedule, O.J. was rarely at home. He and Marguerite now had 2 children, but his marriage was in trouble.
Marguerite Simpson, at that point in her life remained on a relatively normal plane, and O.J. became a superstar of the first magnitude and beyond. And I think perhaps the ultimate separation of the two had to do with different paths in life.
As his marriage was failing, his football life was also winding down. His legs were badly injured from years of punishment. He and Marguerite were separated. Now pregnant with their 3rd child, Marguerite and the children returned to California. In Buffalo, it was unclear where O.J. was headed as the 70s ended and the 80s began. Buffalo Bills never became a championship team despite O.J.'s valiant efforts. O.J. asked to be traded, hoping to find his way to California, his home, and the place where he had other professional interests. In 1978, with his skills diminished by injury, Simpson was traded to the San Francisco 49ers.
I think O.J. had set some kind of a goal that he was going to play so much. I think he probably extended it a year to go to San Francisco and play there.
Home at last, he told reporters. Thank God I'm home at last. He would earn almost $750,000 in 1978, but with continuing knee and shoulder problems, he did not have a strong season.
By the time he was with the 49ers in his final year, with an arthritic knee, he just really couldn't play.
But to be honest with you, there was a major guaranteed contract out there, and he had to go through the year as part of it.
The 49ers thought O.J. was a bargain. He was a hometown product, a superstar who still filled the seats with fans, hoping for one more glimpse of his greatness.
Everybody understood he was at the end of his career. And, of course, he was an incredibly important celebrity by then, nationally. But he got along beautifully with everybody.
Though his career as a football player was coming to its end, his charisma and personality translated well to big screen movies. He made films at the rate of almost one a year. The Cassandra Crossing in 1977.
Why don't you read one of your nice comic books? Okay, sweets.
Capricorn 1 in 1978.
Now, we're in this thing, and I think we're in too deep to stop now.
By 1979, O.J. could hardly play. He had never properly rehabilitated his knees. But as a national figure, he played when he could, though he could only run as a shadow of his former self.
I just felt honor-bound to him and what he stood for, not to put him in games and have him just beat up and go out like a beaten-up old heavyweight or something. I was just going to use him when it looked as though he could succeed, and when it didn't look like he could succeed, he wasn't going to play.
That year, O.J. and Marguerite were divorced. In August, tragedy struck. Aaron, his 23-month-old daughter, fell into the swimming pool at Marguerite's home. The child never regained consciousness, and she died 8 days later in the hospital. O.J. never spoke publicly about the incident, except once, years later.
I used to be so busy, and I used to do so many shows such as this, and I was on the road so much that, in a sense, it partially cost me a marriage. I think when I lost my daughter, I was gone. When my first daughter was born, I was gone. And if anything, I made up my mind that I would be around. And it's nice to be loved by everybody, but there's some people that love you a little more. And I vowed that I'd be a little more accessible to those people.
Along with the death of his daughter, 1979 was the year his playing days ended. O.J. was in his 11th season as a pro.
I wanted O.J. to finish with a flurry, somehow. He couldn't run at all. The team was doing poorly. But our last game at Candlestick, which was in San Francisco, which was his home, and his family and friends were there, it was an O.J. day for him. So finally, in the fourth quarter, I just knew a given run would work because we'd been passing so much. So in he goes, and we run this run. He makes 25 yards. The crowd goes crazy. Of course, I pull him out immediately because the next run, he probably wouldn't make any yards.
At the end of the 1979 season, O.J. Simpson retired from football. He had 4 NFL rushing titles, the single-season rushing record, and he was considered by many to be the NFL Player of the Decade. For all his records, he said his one regret was that he never played in a Super Bowl. With football now behind him, he continued to be one of America's top product spokesmen.
He communicates certain qualities in shorthand. Just by seeing him, you think class, speed, performance, best in the world, without even having to say it.
O.J. became a trusted and accepted part of the American scene. His public persona was admired and loved. O.J. was famous, but he said, quote, "I never wanted to be a victim of my celebrity."
What I do if it's morally acceptable to myself, if it's not offensive to the people around me, I do. And fortunately, I think I'm a normal guy, and I try to act normal. And people sometimes give you credit for being normal.
In 1977, O.J. met Nicole Brown, an 18-year-old waitress, 2 years before he and Marguerite divorced. After living with Nicole for several years, they were married in 1985. In his Hall of Fame speech, he thanked her for helping him adjust to life without football.
My wife, Nicole, who came into my life at what is probably the most difficult time for an athlete at the end of my career. And she turned those years into some of the best years I've had in my life, babes.
Nicole and O.J. lived fashionably and well on an estate in Brentwood. The Los Angeles Times called them, quote, "a vibrant couple accustomed to a lavish lifestyle." They had 2 children. Life seemed perfect, but there were growing problems with the marriage. According to Los Angeles police records, beginning in 1985, the year they were married, Nicole Brown Simpson began a series of calls to 911 with complaints that O.J. had violently attacked her. On New Year's Day, 1989, the police responded to a frantic call from Nicole. They found her injured and frightened. O.J. was arrested. In court, he pled no contest, was fined, and ordered into counseling. More than 7 months later, O.J. talked about the incident.
The day after this was over, we looked at each other. We had a fight. We were both guilty. No one was hurt. It was no big deal, and we got on with our life.
In 1992, O.J. and Nicole were divorced. Nicole won almost a $500,000 settlement and $10,000 a month child support, but their troubles continued. On October 25th, 1993, O.J. Simpson forced his way into his ex-wife's home. She again called 911.
911 emergency.
Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back.
Although their relationship was troubled, O.J. and Nicole went on trips together and were frequently seen in public with their children. On June 12, 1994, O.J. and Nicole went separately to their daughter Sydney's dance recital. After the recital, Nicole, the children, and her parents went to dinner without O.J. At 11:45 p.m. that evening, O.J. was on a flight to Chicago. At 12:10 a.m. on the morning of June 13th, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, a friend who was returning her mother's lost glasses, were found brutally murdered in front of her townhouse.
With the crime of murder, how do you plead to counts 1 and 2?
Absolutely 100% not guilty.